bringing Jeff Passan, the baseball writer from the mothership. Jeff, thanks for joining us again. How close was this that maybe if San Francisco went up another year or the Dodgers expanded this a little bit, like Philadelphia, it felt like gave him an offer he couldn't refuse?
It got to that point at the end, Dan. And that was the thing. This thing stretched out as long as it did because he was just waiting to get not only the commitment in years and in dollars, but the feeling that he's getting what he wants. And it was, it paralleled Manny Machado's free agency so much in that regard. These guys both went into free agency believing they were worth a particular number, and they wanted to hit that number. For Manny Machado, it started with a 3. And for Bryce Harper, it started with a record. And in the end, both of them got what they were looking for.
The Dodgers' offer was pretty good.
It's not exactly what was out there.
Okay.
I think that I think the $45 million a year for 4 years that's out there is exaggerated. It was, from what sources have told me, though, something that would have paid him in the first couple of years potentially $40+ million and included an opt-out after that second year. And it's a really interesting thing to consider, Dan, because let's just look at this mathematically if we can. I know math is hard. I know math is not fun. But just for a second, let's look at this. Let's say that Bryce Harper would have gotten paid $42.5 million each of those first 2 years. And he comes off of, maybe not like an MVP winning season that second year, but a season where he hits 35 home runs and has an OPS of 975 and patrols left field or right field, wherever he's playing well. All of a sudden, you've got a guy who's made $85 million in 2 years and is hitting free agency coming off a better year than this last one that he's had, and is still only 28 years old. So Bryce Harper, theoretically, if he does that, will go out and break the bank still. We'll get $300+ million and already will have $85 million there.
Yeah.
But he didn't want that. He just didn't. And I understand why. I wrote a column that talked about some of these meetings that he had. And in these meetings, he and his wife, Kayla, kept using the word family. And I don't mean to sound trite, and I'm not trying to be all like Mike Hampton, I signed with the Rockies because of the school districts. But, I think this really mattered to Bryce Harper, feeling love and wanting to commit to a place because he has no opt-outs. And he has a full no-trade clause, which means he can spend 13 years with the Philadelphia Phillies, and that is completely up to him whether he wants to do so.
Yeah, and I think it worked out for both sides, which usually doesn't happen, certainly with a Scott Boras client. And Philadelphia, I think, at least for the next 7 to 9 years, they might look at this and say, we got a hell of a bargain. I don't know what the back end of this is going to look like, but for the time being, and they can add some pieces here. They had a good offseason prior to getting Harper. Now it's been a great offseason for Philadelphia. If you're looking at where they rank now with the other National League teams, are they ahead of the Dodgers?
Potentially. There's still questions, I think, about the depth of the Phillies rotation. Aaron Nola, as wonderful as he was last year, the notion of him repeating that is a difficult thing to do. Maybe he is that guy who can go out and put back-to-back Cy Young type seasons on the board. Jake Arrieta, there are questions about him. Speaking of putting back-to-back Cy Young type seasons on the board, he hasn't done that. He's getting a little older. I personally love Nick Pivetta. I think he's a guy who's primed for a breakout, and if he can be that guy. And they have a sneaky, potentially good bullpen too. And the big thing with the Phillies, they gave away so many runs last year with just absolutely awful fielding. And I don't think they're going to do that this year. I think they're gloves are going to be a whole lot better around the diamond. And if they can save some runs with those gloves, they're going to hit, man. And they are going to hit really well. They're in that ballpark. They may lead the National League in runs scored. That ballpark and that lineup is going to be really, really good.
Talking to Jeff Passan, baseball insider from ESPN, joining us from Arizona. Also wondering this, more likely to hit the open market or re-sign with their teams? If I look at Mookie Betts in Boston, I look at Aaron Judge in New York, and I'm looking at Mike Trout in Los Angeles. Who's more likely to hit the open market out of those three?
Betts.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the feeling Judge is not. This isn't his style. That the Yankees will probably try to lock him up. I'm going to guess Artie Moreno and the Angels are going to do their best to lock up Mike Trout. And
one would believe. However, and let's remember this. And this was something that didn't go unspoken with Bryce Harper's contract. There were allusions to it when I was talking with people yesterday, and that allusion was used in the word flexibility. And if you look at Harper's deal, the Phillies wanted to stretch it over 13 years because they understood that when you're talking about calculating the luxury tax, that number comes from the average annual value. And the average annual value of Manny Machado's deal, for example, is $30 million. Bryce Harper's is only $25.4 million. So that means whatever the luxury tax threshold becomes, and it's going to be a lot higher after this collective bargaining agreement, I think. Whatever it becomes, though, $25 million is a really comfortable number for the Phillies to be at, and it gives them the flexibility to go out and, I don't know, say spend $40 million a year on a kid from Millville, New Jersey who loves nothing more than the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, just saying, that's a possibility. And you know what? There was an across the country wink wink that was sent yesterday from Philadelphia to Mike Trout saying, "Hey buddy, we got one. Come and make it two. We'll be waiting for you here."
Oh, boy.
And Trout's not a free agent until after the 2020 season. But I think, I think when you look at what Mike Trout is going to warrant, because he is the best player I've ever seen, the best player in a generation, potentially, I'm just saying potentially the best player ever. That's the kind of start that he's had to his career. He's going to warrant 12 years and $400 million. I'll just say that right now. And the last time Artie Moreno signed a guy past age 40 was Albert Pujols. And Artie Moreno also signed a center fielder through his mid to late 30s. And that was Josh Hamilton. And between those two, that's $400 million or so that have not turned out particularly well.
We got some time to digest that one, though. Jeff, thank you. As always, great work covering this, and have fun in spring training.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you having me.
That's Jeff Passan, baseball insider from the Mothership. If you missed any of our interviews this week from the Mercedes-AMG Man Cave, go to the Dan Patrick Show app where you can watch and listen from inside the Mercedes-AMG Man Cave. Mercedes-AMG driving performance.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.